moved over for all I know.
No, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing.
Yeah, that's.
That happens when you don't pull your hand out of the reel quick enough.
You just want salt.
That's why I don't stick my.
I got
hand
it.
in there.
Oh.
If anything, it's just spin it really quick to make sure it's spinning.
It's. Part of that.
And then pull it down, not up towards
Yeah,
the-
that one's working. I replaced Chad's golf.
Oh, did you?
Okay.
Replace what?
Yeah. My neighbor's golf club. I was like,
What did that-
it's part of that. We have to watch that spring of how much.
Good.
of a mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
Breaking it?
And then that.
I borrowed my neighbor's clubs, Chad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're good? All right.
Yeah.
Let's get this party rolling. Call the meeting to order. Start with pledge allegiance. Oh, we'll make Randy.
Okay.
Yeah, Randy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Leonard.
Here.
Craig.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
Dedek.
Here.
Frank. Here. Miller.
Here.
Ennis.
Here.
All right, public comments. Open floor, anybody online? No, anybody in the crowd?
Just let everybody know that the new addition to the pole barn is being utilized by Boy Scouts and the LPCA. Thank you, Dave, for pulling all that stuff over there. So it is being used now.
All right, treasurer report. You want to approve all these as a together, whatever that word is.
I think it's that agenda.
Consent agenda. Unless you guys,
I'll move the consent agenda.
okay, any discussion, all right, got a second, any discussion? All in favor for consent? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 2, Legion Lions Club Springtime Festival, May 24th, beer tent fundraiser.
You're up.
Well, Anthony said the back.
Speak, but, well, Craig said the Lions Club and the Legion want to do a beer tent during springtime festival. And we'd like to do it down in the park. We got a map, we're gonna fence it all in. With, tennis courts, so they can do their, or cornhole. And then we just have to get the approval from the city to be able to do that.
What would that do with the other area? They won't be able to walk from that.
No, well, even if you have a beer tent, you have to stay in there.
Okay.
They can't be part of the social district. Beer tents.
Just as-
So it would just, they would have to stay in that
Beer
area
tent there.
with their drinks.
Yeah.
Which
Correct.
they've done enough to know, and
We're
they,
gonna fence in because the cornhole is gonna be at the tennis courts, so we're gonna run a fence down so that they'll all be utilized.
Right. so it would just be a beer tent. Is it through the whole?
Just Saturday,
Just Saturday.
Saturday noon to 11, whatever curfew is in the city.
And the rule of no alcohol in the park, it basically comes to us in this
It goes
circumstance
through.
to allow an exception.
Yep. Yep, and the beer tent covers, I mean, their license will cover the liability for. We still have liability, but.
So your
bad
license, you're insured, your fence.
Yep, for us to have when we do the car show at the Legion, we get an open liquor license to the public, which we will get. And then as long as we have it in a fenced in area, then our license will cover it.
And you guys do all of the above. So city doesn't even. get
No.
involved.
So, and then we're welcome to come down and walk through and make sure everything's okay, but,
So we just need a motion.
Motion to approve them having those. here.
I would do that motion.
Second that.
Yes, motion a second. Any more discussion? Any issues, Dan?
no.
Any other discussion?
Could we get a sketch of the actual footprint they're talking about fencing in?
He has a map. Yeah. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I have.
So is this different than what normally happens back where the railroad is, or is that still there, or? Was that wasn't
They don't do the
yours?
That wasn't us.
Yeah, they don't do the burnout
That was-
anymore.
Twilligers was doing, I think, that beer tent down there.
Okay,
This is during springtime though.
Yep.
And that-
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very pancake burger.
gotcha.
The car show.
Oh,
Oh, perfect.
What about like? Is this kegs? I'm
it'll
assuming
be cans.
cans.
Cans, yeah. Yep, and possibly music. They're gonna get in contact with, Jeff Wood's band, because he was gonna help us out, do some events out there, and then we said, well, how about if we can do it here? If they can have music here, but there's a curfew, correct, at 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
So that everything,
Well, kind of, it's a city-sponsored event, we can kind of.
okay, I got you. Okay. So that's our plan, that's what we like to do. I mean, hopefully bring more people into town for the Spring Fest. The Lions Club, cornhole tournament, they say bring in over 100 and some people. So that's more people.
And would the music stay within this or the music?
Yes, the
would be
music
at
will be
the-
inside the fence there. Yep. I have another. I don't have to wait for that one.
And for the.
It's not on it.
Do you have your paperwork?
Same map.
Is it?
That's good.
These-
Is that, you're ready to go?
Do you have your paperwork ready?
Yes, yes.
Well, I will, because I leave Thursday.
Oh, well, we want you to sign yours at first. I'm not sure which one you sign. I know Ken wanted me to bring it out to you. So I'm not sure which one did.
What's there's a discrepancy in the pictures, I guess, of the clarification.
Okay, because I don't know what.
So have them fill that out, and I'll be here all day tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, this shows,
Don't lose to them.
so is the entire park is being fenced off?
No.
No, it's just the tennis court.
It's just the-
Just the tennis court.
So that.
Fenced off.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Oh, I see.
RJ said that was the fenced off.
Which one does chief sign? I think apparently we have one that you guys need to fill out, have a state approval or something.
Yeah, we have an application.
It's application and
Yeah.
notarized.
For me, one of them.
Yeah, you can just drop it off at the, at
Okay.
the front desk and
Okay.
then we'll file.
You happen to know which one it is? I've never did this before.
Um,
I don't know which one.
it's probably, do you have them right there?
I have
Yeah.
everything that we got,
Is it just, do you have the state ones or do you have the Laingsburg?
We have the state.
Okay, there's probably an application for the Lang, for just us, the city, which is not a big deal. You can fill that out anytime, but the state one, it should be just the one that they always fill out, right?
Yes, yeah.
We should probably approve it before we send it anyway.
Underneath.
Yes, right, that's what I'm saying, everybody's gonna approve it, then I'll make them fill it out then.
Any more discussion, guys? Okay, let's do a roll call.
Okay.
Craig,
Yes.
Vidic,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Ennis,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yeah.
Stevens.
Yes. That is approved. All right, moving on, termination letter from Alan Edward Holm, that is just the previous agreement. Does not mean that they are out.
No, there should have been the one that was expired and then the new one. And
We don't want you to get it.
Brian online and
Yes.
guys. Oh, there he is.
Wearing green. Scary.
Yeah, I know, right? Green and white. Yeah, we both want.
Hi, Brian.
Right, that's just. The second.
So, for you, some of you that were here, you know who Brian is, that were here when they talked about the housing behind PDPs. If not, this is Brian Farkas. He's with
Hello.
Alan. And they are looking at restarting this up again. Which the finance committee talked a little bit about. Cleaning up the area, because we know it's contaminated. So we have Critera and Sedum that are going to be testing it again. It's going into the second phase, right? Because the first,
Finishing the phase.
yeah, we're finishing phase 2. So, there's lots of different things programs going on now, for that area where they weren't before. So they were here to kind of tell you what they're looking at,
Programs, meaning
funding for this. It's a different program, like the,
for cleanup of the,
that too. There is
Cleanup
different,
development.
the development, the different, things that they can use to put the development in. There's just some different,
and for us newbies, what's the development?
that's what he's here to talk about. And Jason.
Amy,
Justin.
yeah.
Or Justin.
If I could, good evening, council. Hi, everybody. Justin Horvath, Shiawassee Economic Development Partnership. It's been a while since I've been on. I think I'm new to some of the council members. So we do economic development for the county and obviously supporting the city of Laingsburg. You've been a partner of ours for many, many years. Just a little background on why we're here, and I think you framed it up well. So our organization, we've been focusing on a number of different things throughout the county, but certainly being able to develop more quality housing, I think, is a definite goal. I know that's something that's of great interest here in the community. And so we've really been trying hard to identify builders, developers, to match them up with sites and properties and use different programs and tools to make this possible. So we've been engaged actually with Brian and the Alan Edwin team now for a few years. They've actually already started a project over in Durand, and they're actually expanding their efforts over there in Durand. And as part of that relationship building, they wanted to explore other sites in Shiawassee. So we turned them down to Laingsburg. They looked at some different properties here, and at the time had settled on wanting to pursue something with the Railroad Street property that the city owned. And I'm stealing Brian's thunder a little bit here. He'll probably give you some of this background, but we ran into some snags. It is a contaminated site. There was some other things that happened that kind of put things on pause. But Brian is a great guy. His company is great, and they want to try to make something work. So we reapproached. We sat down with your leadership team here. That's probably been what, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago now, to get the conversation restarted. With the idea, as Kim said, there are some additional assistance programs that are available. So one thing that was already mentioned, we're able to secure, the city's able to secure or work with different grants to be able to not only continue with the, testing and evaluation of what's the contaminant on the Railroad Street property, but what's very interesting and potentially exciting is there are dollars out there, particularly with a builder that is willing to commit to that site, grant money to help pay for the cleanup. The other issue that has just arisen, I think there's is there a Jesselyn online?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There is.
So, yeah, hey, Jesselyn. So the other issue, and once again, some of you know this, some of you don't, we have a grant writing partnership through Lion Bear Ventures, and Jess is with Lion Bear, that's available to the city and nonprofits, but I could talk more about that, to help with identifying monies for different projects. And what they've turned us on to specifically for this project is something called community development block grants, which the city has used before on some different projects historically. But for here, there's a particular opportunity as it relates to public infrastructure or housing development. So it could be used in conjunction with the cleanup grant to basically, ultimately the goal would be to use grants to deliver a clean site that helps pay for public infrastructure, things like sewer, parking, whatnot, that would allow, obviously, hopefully Alan Edwin to be able to build homes on the property and, reuse the site in downtown, bring more people, all the good stuff. So that kind of tees it up, hopefully, and gives a little more background to the council about the history. And then, yeah, maybe if it'd be appropriate if Brian and Jess want to jump in with additional information.
Yeah, I can start if you'd like. My name is Brian Farkas. I'm with Alan Edwin Homes. I think I've met a lot of you before. We were looking at the site about 2 years ago. Our plans are to build about 16 single-family homes, 14 single-family homes and 1 duplex unit. And we just ran into some issues with, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We ran into some issues with the state law we were intending to use was pilot, and it just didn't fit well with the funding and what needed to be done on the site. Fast forward to today, there's a new state law called the TIF. We've got some grants lined up to help pay for it. And so we're at the very beginning stages of restarting this project right now, and we're very excited about it. I love Laingsburg, and we're not gonna give up on this project easily.
Then maybe Jess, can you talk about, I mean, I gave the broad strokes on this CDBG grant, but can you kind of tell everybody how that works?
Absolutely. And I also want to apologize for not being there. I'm sitting in my car right now so I could make this meeting for you guys. So the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant, is something that the state of Michigan's offering in partnership with MISTA. And it, as Justin said, used to be primarily used for homeowner improvement projects. And they've recently expanded their eligible activities to include infrastructure. They've left the broad strokes of that pretty vague as of now. And we believe through our conversations with MISTA that is because they want to see the vast variety of projects that will apply and to see how they can stretch that to be able to distribute the funds. And with that, there's $400,000 available for local units of government to apply for. That $400,000 is available with no match. And there's up to $1.5 million total in funding. So past $400,000, you're going to need a 1-to-1 match. So if you want to apply to get the maximum funding, you would need a $1.1 million match. And as I said, that's available for local municipalities, governments, townships, such as, villages and cities. And so far, we think it can be used with parking lots, anything that will really aid in infrastructure to support housing. And with that, they are asking for a letter of intent to be submitted by April 17th. If you have projects that you want, we're recommending setting up a meeting with us as soon as possible at Lion Bear, that we can get that in, because to our understanding, this isn't a scoring-based rubric for the grant application. It is purely a timestamp. So the sooner we can get those submitted, the better. And after that, they will open up and you'll have 4 months to complete the grant application. So that puts you at September 17th. And from there, if you're awarded the money, you'll be able to start the construction next day. And I think that covered just about everything as far as that goes. And I should mention that in addition to the local government being able to apply for these funds, for the private developer that wants to build, apartments or any sort of housing on that land, there's also a program with MISTA called My Neighborhoods that allows you to apply for up to $400,000, no match, getting $100,000 per unit. So, 4 apartment units, you can get $400,000 total. And we can get into the specifics of that at any point. So there's a lot of funding out there available and stackable funding opportunities as well to be able to support the needs of Michigan housing, especially accessible housing.
One clarification, I'm sure some of
Yeah.
you within the council, most of the audience left. MISTA stands for Michigan State Housing Development Authority. So it's the state housing agency that's making these dollars available. The other thing too, Jess, so it's kind of interesting, even though it's statewide funding, they're funneling it through regions. So Shiawassee is part of the I-69 Thumb region. Basically, Shiawassee Genesee, Lapeer, St. Clair, and the Thumb counties. And this particular block grant that we talked about tonight, how much money is sitting in that pot, Jess?
I do not have that figure off the top of my head. I apologize.
I think it's like between $7 and $8 million.
It is, that sounds close, yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of money out there that if we don't apply for it, if we don't get it spent, it's going to go away next year because it wasn't used.
Yep. And I think what's important though, and Brian, if you want to jump in here, I mean, the key is you got to have a developer, a builder on the back end that's willing to commit. And Brian, you're familiar with that program. Do you feel that would be a good fit for the city to apply for those dollars for you?
I do. We are at Allen Eben Homes. So some background on our company. We're a 30-year-old Michigan-based company, and we've built over 10,000 homes. We're currently on pace this year to build just over 1,000. So I think as MISHDA is looking at, whether the applicants have the horsepower to get this project done, I think partnering with Laingsburg on this property, we would actually show a lot of horsepower, local support, and a developer that can get the job done.
And so I think the one thing tonight, number one, this is obviously meant to be an introduction, for more detail for the council. But what I heard, Jess, there is one time sensitive piece here, and this is this letter of intent. And what does that mean? So the council knows.
So luckily, it's a very low lift operation with that letter of intent. Essentially, it's an application that we put in that gives a rundown of the project that you want to use these funds for. So for example, if it was a new water tower, that may be eligible because it services the community, it serves housing. So we would talk about that. And then just gathering all the documents, making sure that the zoning is in order, that if it's on private land, we have the written permission of the landowner. And usually once we have all the information at Lion Bear, it takes us about 2 hours to get that application going. We talk about the community, we talk about the project, and we submit it. And that is, the applications for that close April 17th. So we're, looking at 16 days once we start looking at tomorrow.
What's needed for us or from us for that letter to be sent? Is that something that Kim sends or they send or both? Or
She's gonna help us do that.
Yeah, yep. I can get the contact information from Justin to disperse that, and we're happy to set up a quick Zoom call or Microsoft Teams, whatever your choice of platform is, to go over the documents that we would need. And then from there, we would sign the contract over to get that going. And we can essentially, once all the documents are there, we will write it, we will submit it if that's the path that you choose to go.
does that go hand in hand with the new land purchase agreement with Allen Edwin, or is that, or maybe that's
Yeah, that's their, what they call that, what do we call that? Purchase agreement for the future of because that was the agreement before that was canceled. The first one was.
You had an agreement in February of 23.
Yeah.
That was good for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then the one letter that we got in our packet was, we're done with that. And then there was another letter that we didn't get.
No,
that
it's in here.
says,
Yeah,
the new ones in here?
yeah, they were right behind each other. One was the one and
Okay,
the one right
maybe
after
I-
that.
skimmed over. So
That's
they're
the
back
new one
in,
from,
and it's to resume where it left off, but it never left off really, but it did.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And how many of us here have seen the overall plan?
Well, they changed. I mean, the original plans that we had were like 20 some houses. And then we found out,
Houses.
yeah, and they went too far. That was pretty much, some of the reasons why everything just closed down, because we couldn't go back as far where we thought because of the wetlands and,
The infrastructure was gonna be too much.
yeah, so that's kind of where it ended. So there's gonna be new plans, all new things to look at.
If I can I share my screen? Is that possible?
Sure.
Okay, let me do this and I'll show you the kind of site sketch we have planned right now.
A small screen that we're looking at, so while we
That's why I asked if it would make sense. I apologize. So can you see the site plan here?
not really,
A strip.
It's
Oh,
literally
okay.
just behind Katie.
all the way across the room on a laptop screen.
How long?
Sorry. Why don't we stop this and I'll come up there and do a presentation to properly show you guys what we're planning to do. But it's 16 units. And there's talk of contamination on the site. And I want to reiterate the fact that, we think the site can be cleaned up and not be contaminated. And that's what we're going to do and take over once the site is cleaned up. If it is contaminated, we're not going to be able to touch the site. But every indication we have from every professional we've run this thinks that it is slightly above the level it needs to be at. And so if we can get that site cleaned up, we're ready to go.
So are these 16 individual family homes or their apartments? Homes.
This
correct?
would be single family homes. They would be arranged 14 separate structures and one duplex at the very end as the street kind of loops around. But you'd have really cute kind of new urbanist feel, 20 feet wide, 42 feet deep, 3 and 4 bedroom homes.
And what is a price range for these homes?
These would be rental. They'd be held to missing middle workforce housing. So we guesstimate those rents would come in at about $1,800 a month to $1,900 a month. And you'd have to make under a certain amount. I think in Laingsburg, it's about $103,000 a year for a family of 5. So it's really tailored through a MISTA program for teachers, police officers, firefighters, things like that.
Brian, just so they know, and I think where that number comes from is when Michigan does these incentives, they want people to meet a certain band of income. So to be clear, this is not low income, obviously,
Correct.
but I believe this is for focused on families that are 80 to 120%.
Exactly.
So, the average person, the average family that needs housing, and it is literally based on what your income is in life. So the income here is higher than maybe a Wasso or something like that. So,
That's probably about the average. Price. Pretty close.
yeah.
And then the city, I'm trying to remember the details from the original presentation, but like we receive tax revenue from it or something, correct? Like, or
He's seeking a TIF, if I can. So we'd be seeking a TIF for this deal. So two things. If you approve the purchase agreement and don't approve the TIF, this deal still doesn't happen. So we're going to need the purchase agreement approved and the TIF approved, and the TIF will be a separate presentation, but a high level view of it as the land right now is publicly owned and it's not generating any tax revenue. What we're going to do is we're going to come in and invest probably a couple $1 million to develop the site, and the property tax revenue will increase because of the investment. For a number of years, maybe 10, 15 years, we'll recapture a large portion of that increased tax revenue to pay ourselves back. And then once we're paid back, you've got 16 homes now all hitting the tax rolls at once in Laingsburg.
More of a big picture for the city.
Yeah, we've been sitting on the property for years now.
I remember.
How's the TIF work?
Good question. Yeah.
Yep. So the TIF, the best short phrase I've heard to describe the TIF is it is a self-funding incentive. So the city of Laingsburg has no requirement to put up any money for this deal and has no risk in the deal. We put up the money, we build the houses, and then the taxes for a period of time, with the exception of school debt taxes and special assessment taxes, are directed to pay us back for only eligible expenses. So if we front the money for the infrastructure improvement, whatever Jess can't get through a grant, we're prepared to step up and do that. The benefit of having Jess and her team pursuing the grant is the more money they get, the less tax revenue we'll capture on the back end. So if we self-fund this and Jess doesn't get us any money, we're probably looking at a 15, 20-year TIF. If they get all the infrastructure covered and things like that, it might be a 10-year TIF. So we'll get into those details when we do a presentation, but I want to be very clear, under no circumstances will the city of Laingsburg need to budget a line item to pay a developer like Allen Edwin Homes. It is completely self-funding. If the property underperforms, we don't get paid back.
But what about like roads and sidewalks? They do all that?
That's the grant that letter of.
That's
intent.
that's the grant or the TIF, and we would be fronting that initially.
So are we approving we're now looking to approve the TIF tonight, but we know that we would need to be presented on the TIF down the road and that it would.
Yeah.
That will be required down the road, but we're not looking at that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna come in and do a presentation of what actually they're gonna do, but tonight it's the letter of intent and then accepting their
Land purchase.
Purchase
That's purchase. I'm like, oh, like, as soon as that comes up.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and the best way I've heard it described is approving the purchase agreement doesn't mean we own the land. It's kind of like dating, engagement, and marriage. The purchase agreement is kind of like engagement.
Yeah, yeah.
This
Again.
would truly be an
Seconding.
engagement that we can break off.
Correct. You can leave us at the altar and not approve the TIF.
I'll make a
Well-
motion then. I know we're requiring our discussion, but I'll put the motion out there.
What are we making a motion on? The letter of intent?
The letter of intent.
Okay.
And also going in purchase agreement.
You want to do them separate? I would do them separate.
Sure.
So we got a motion for the letter of intent, need a second.
I'll second.
So we got a first and second, then we got any more discussion on just the letter of intent? Is what needs to be proved today.
Has the letter of intent or the purchase agreement been before the city's attorney for their legal opinion?
Well, we haven't done the letter of intent yet. That's just to do the letter.
I'm just looking at the land purchase agreement here, so that's what we're gonna be agreeing to, correct?
That's the purchase agreement. That was the one that was almost identical to the last one that we had, and no, we haven't had the attorney look at it. This new one, no.
What you guys are telling us without approving this, we're not gonna get to the point where we can actually see the financials to know what the benefit of the cities.
If we don't accept their purchase agreement, we can't go
We
anywhere.
can't move forward, yeah,
Correct.
so.
Yeah.
Because that's really what I think, in order for us to approve the whole project, we'd like to see what the.
Right, you will.
What the return on investment for the city's gonna be, what I
Right.
can't do unless we get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like, they'll come in with their presentation after this, and then, we'll send the letter of intent, see where we are with the grants and.
Yeah, because I mean, the grants, there's enough grants out there from different organizations that can cover almost the entire cost of this. And then they get paid back from like the 10-year TIF. Then after that, the city starts collecting the taxes, and that's the big picture for the city. It's not the here and now, but.
And then having extra help.
Yeah.
The verbiage we use is a capital stack. So it used to be you just go to a bank and you get a loan, there's your money, and now you gotta put this, and you gotta have that grant and that and
Yeah.
that, because the cost of everything's so high.
Yeah.
And so unless you use this, they can never build housing at a price point that anyone could afford.
When it's all said and done, who owns the unit?
They
Vote
will-
on the units.
They're owning.
Yes, correct.
So. Our real benefit in the future will just be whatever the tax liability is
Correct.
on them after they're repaired.
Yes.
In addition to
In having new
more
homes.
people in town spending money in
Right.
restaurants.
And currently,
kids in school.
There's no revenue from this property at all.
Oh, yeah, no, I
It's just
understand that, yeah,
so-
but we're also adding rental properties. not
Exactly, yeah.
Single family housing.
Well, they are.
And one other thing I will add is these are single family housing with 3 and 4 bedrooms. So we're seeing about 80 to 90% of our occupants come with school aged children, which would then bring in the state per pupil revenue sharing for the schools. That is unaffected by the TIF.
Which we are a young community.
So if I read that as being
The family.
Yeah,
the former, but I don't see a date on.
We're agreeing to move forward, but we're also gonna
reach
Yeah.
the purchase agreement.
That's what the new one.
Do we have to do the
It was
purchase
just
agreement
the-
tonight?
the letter.
Brian, do you need that purchase agreement tonight or?
Just the one that's saying it worked.
The sooner I can get the purchase agreement, the better. If you'd like to wait 2 weeks and run it by an attorney, I'm fine with that too. I don't want to put any pressure on you guys. And then you can go through it and, you know,
I mean, my reluctance is not that I don't think it's a good idea, but the seller shall pay or reimburse the purchaser, transfer, all that. I want to know the liability exposing us. I mean, I know there's grants and everything there. If there is contaminants, what is the city going to be on the hook for if something goes wrong? And I mean, without having our legal folks look at this and tell us that we're comfortable that we have no liability at all. I would prefer not to, I mean, let's do the intent, but I mean, I want to know what we're on the hook for if
And
something goes wrong.
That's why I said, can we walk away at the altar? I'm uncomfortable with a gun to my head tonight.
yeah, let's take the gun away and have your lawyer look at it. And, you know, knowing that if you approve it tonight or not, you still have an off ramp by not approving the TIF in a couple months. So the ball's in your court. I'm not a high pressure salesman here.
Well, but we do need to move forward to get an April 17th deadline.
Right.
That's-
Yeah, the letter of intent can be separate.
That's for the grant.
That's separate.
For the grant.
Yeah, that we approve.
That's,
You
That-
don't
that's
need the
separate from
purchase
the
agreement
purchase
for the
agreement.
letter. of
Yeah.
intent.
Correct.
That's pretty much separate.
Yeah.
The separate.
That's just a letter saying that we intend to move forward with this.
Grant.
And it gives
with
us
the grant,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we can get the
And we have to.
gal in the car, Jess. She
With-
can
Yep.
get all rolling on that.
With this, with that grant though, we also have to have a developer that's, I mean, it pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, so and just jump in. So for the letter of intent, it can still be this broad stroke, high level detail. Should we actually get further along and they want us to proceed, we'd have, would you say 3 or 4 months to get everything finalized? Is that
September
right?
17th.
Yes, we have 4 months. So the letter of intents close on April 17th. As I said, it's timestamped, so the sooner the better. And from there, if you are awarded those funds, you have 4 months to get the application together. And the application is also something that Lion Bear Ventures would be able to assist in.
So during that time,
And then-
period, when we would finish up the purchase agreement, do the tip, do all the fun stuff to get everything ready to go. And I think, Brian, that's very doable, right?
Absolutely.
And Shiawassee County's in bed with Jess, but you're paying that bill.
Yeah, so, that's, I like your vernacular. Get right to it, Tim. So just so we're good, so I am a private nonprofit organization. We have contracted with Lion Bear Ventures to do grants work for local governments and nonprofits throughout Shiawassee County. I need a whiteboard for all this, but but then to be very straightforward, we got a grant to help pay for the grant writer. And so I don't believe, I know there's been some conversation, I think, with some people at the city, maybe at some point, with that, but I don't believe Lion Bear, I don't think you've actually written any grants for the city yet, have you?
That's not something I can answer confidently. I'm newer
Yeah.
to the team. I'm sorry about
That's
that.
okay, I didn't think so. So what that grant is supposed to do is cover, it's actually funded by a local foundation, but that grant is supposed to cover helping a community apply for a grant. So we've done that a number of places in the county already. They've actually, so without going into all the details, they've actually been successful in getting over $5 million into Shiawassee County. And so it's been a huge win. I mean, we'll talk more about that.
Money well spent.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We originally had a grant from USDA Rural Development to help pay for the grant writer. That ran out. This came online. So
Okay, so we have a motion for the letter of intent now. let's get through that thing first. We have a motion and a second on that. Is there any more discussion on just the letter of intent? No, okay, let's go ahead and do a roll call on that one.
Edith,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Ennis,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Beavers.
Yes. So letter of intent is good to go. We'll get that thing done. Now, the purchase agreement, Brian, you're good if we don't get that just right now, but we can come back to that soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do you need that in 2 weeks? 'Cause we won't meet again until a month. I didn't know if there's another process that we can go through to get it to you quicker than that, unless we call a special meeting just to vote for that, which we can do.
Is there a way you could vote to authorize it pending an attorney's review to ensure there's no unnecessary liability on behalf of the city?
That we could probably do as long as it's in the motion that's stated, so.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right. So,
Okay.
the motion with that wording.
I will amend my motion with that wording.
Thanks for that.
So amended the motion for, double check through the attorneys, make sure there's no undue necessary financial burden on the city for now, and I'll need a second for that.
I will second that.
Okay, is there any more discussion? So, Tim, you look confused.
Well, it can wait until a later date. I want a lot more detail on how the TIF works. I know how TIFs work.
Okay.
I know how the DDA TIF works.
Mhm. Same premise.
This is gonna be the TIF, the district is gonna be the housing development, correct?
Yep,
And each one of those properties has a taxable value,
yep.
and the total collected from each one of those houses will be the TIF amount. That's not exactly an increment.
So, Brian, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so it's an increment based on what the current, so usually when you do a tax increment, you have privately owned property that's, let's say this property was worth $10,000 today. And we're gonna come in and put a couple $1 million into it. At the end of the day, it's gonna be worth like 3 or 4 million. The increment would be the difference between that 10,000 and the new value. Because this is publicly owned land, and I've done this in a few cities, the increment is the base value where you set the increment from is 0. So the city's collecting 0 tax dollars from this today. So every added taxable value would be a net towards the increment.
So that will be the TIF amount.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, the
Yep.
reason I paused, and Brian touched on this, and we're getting a little in the weeds, but it's important you're aware. It doesn't capture everything. So what were was it school debt?
So if
Yeah.
any debt millage or special
Yeah.
assessment millage is excluded from the capture, so that would have an immediate impact, positive impact for the municipality.
Is there any of those? You guys levy that?
we've got fire and ambulance and
Okay.
library and
So you get the value of that
We
from the
keep
16
that,
new homes,
yeah.
yeah.
and then how do you determine the number of years? That the
The
TIF
number
is
of years
in
would be
existence?
it would be a function of the amount of money we put in for the infrastructure and the housing.
So you just
and-
do math.
What's that?
You
It's
just
a
do
straight
math.
math. Yep, it's a math
Okay.
Yeah,
formula.
the only difference, and you talked about it paying for itself, so you have a DDA, which goes on and on and on, this is site specific and it's time sensitive, you can't go on forever.
Correct.
So as soon as everything is covered from the eligible expenses, it ends and goes back on the full
And then we get
tax
full
roll.
vote.
Yeah, and what'll happen here, like, here's where it is a little different, because once again, I wanna get in the weeds here. So this is a brownfield site, because of the contamination. Laingsburg does not have a brownfield authority, you have a downtown development authority. The good news is, we have a county brownfield authority, which actually my organization helps staff. And so what we would do is they would have the ability to approve this plan. However, and this is more protection from the city, you have to concur with that TIF plan. So that is a requirement. So that's another bite at the apple for the city to be protected on that. We did this same thing for Brian in the city of Durham. And we got it approved with city concurrence in 9 days, back in December. And that real, and Brian, tell me if I'm wrong, that made you and your leadership team more confident in investing in this county.
Absolutely. It put projects like this back on the map. Because, we go through some municipalities and it's a months long bureaucratic process. 9 days caught a lot of attention in Portage.
Yeah, and that was Durant City Council, County Brownfield Authority, and the County Board of Commissioners too. But the good news for all of you, they're teed up for it. The Brownfield Authority, the Board of Commissioners. So when we bring this forward, oh, great, Alan Edwin, another project, Laingsburg, let's do it. So,
And what Justin said there is very important. The first step of that process is local support. Without local support, it's not like it would be harder to get, it would be impossible to get. The Brownfield Authority and the county won't even entertain it without local support approval of the, and it's not a general, we're in favor of this broad idea. It is about an 80-page document that spells out every single term, expense, everything. And we only get the money back that we can prove we spent. So we have to budget for it and then show our receipts. And if we exceed the budget, we don't get it back. The Brownfield plan sets the upward limit of what we can recover. You guys approve that. The plan gets executed and then we start moving dirt.
You typically have once the TIF is repaid, do you typically retain ownership of the properties long-term, or do you then sell them? What's your strategy at that point?
So right now we generally keep the properties long-term. This is a new state law, so our average TIF time is 17 years. The first ones are just under construction right now. So I can't look back and say, well, 20 years ago when we got our first TIF approved, we still own it. We're still at the doorstep of this long run.
You have some other developments that, let's say, are 10, 15-year-old that you're still in your rentals.
Yeah, well, we started doing our rental projects. So we're a 30-year-old company. About 7 or 8 years ago, we started doing build to lease. And those are still managed by our internal company called Copper Bay Rentals. So it's a wholly owned subsidiary. And if you go to a copperbay.com website, you can look at our rentals. And it's the same homes we build and sell are the same ones we build and lease. It's just a different brand. There's Alan Edwin Homes and Copper Bay.
Yeah, we'll check that out because that's really a long-term partnership for us too.
Yeah.
Maintaining, let's like make sure that
It's not an out of state landlord based in Dallas that you can never get a hold of. I can text Lexi right from my phone and say, hey, Laingsburg's pissed, the grass is too long, go cut it.
You're not gonna be a slumlord?
I will not be a slumlord.
The last thing I want to say, because once again, we've got some new council members that have been out here. So just so you know, the city of Laingsburg has been a one-time investor, probably for our entire history, almost 20 years. So that basically puts me on retainer as well. So like, I'm not gonna send you a bill for my hours for this too, in case you were wondering. So yeah, the city's been, I think, for 20+ years. So you guys might not have known that. So I just wanted to share that as well. So, and we don't just do housing. We're available to support, downtown development. I know this is not an area we would do like industry and things like that, but if you have any, and I'm obviously in touch with Kim a lot, Greg, but if you have any ideas, anything we can help with in the city that could help further development here, let us know. We're happy to help.
All right, any more discussions? Okay. Ready to vote? All right, that's good with them.
Frank,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Ennis,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Feedick,
Yes.
Beavers.
Yes. Okay, so that is approved. So yeah, once we get our attorney to look at it, Ryan, and he approves it, I'll let the council, we'll let council know, and then we'll let you know too, so we can get that thing moving.
Perfect. Yeah, you get a signature over to me. I'll have it signed and sent back to you for your records.
Perfect, thank you.
We'll get to work.
Thank you.
on LOI, letter of intent with Laingsburg. So.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
You guys are welcome. Thank you.
All right,
Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody. Let me in touch. I'll get a hold of you.
Okay,
Thanks. Yeah, take care. Good night.
Bye.
All right, thanks, Brian. All right, next thing on the list is final preliminary budget. Financing was going through that. Who wants to take the ball and roll? Danelle?
Ball rolled it, okay.
What? I mean, it's the preliminary final budget. Do we,
Does the finance committee have anything that they were recommending or wanted to change on? the preliminary budget?
then we can discuss what we have more.
I think we did.
No, not on the budget. We were. Janelle broke down and started breaking down the wages, based on what department people are actually working for the time, so that Dave has a spreadsheet of who is working on specific jobs at specific times for the day or the pay period that is being put into a database to try to figure out
Where everyone's allocated to work.
yeah, so what wages go to what department? Trying to be more specific in budgeting for each department versus just DPW and police and everything. So she's just trying to break it down evenly throughout the whole.
Basically, so every department being charged what is being worked. So it hasn't been done, and I don't know when the last time it was ever done, so for the past year, Dave's been keeping track of where everyone's working in the hours, how many hours they're going to the parks, how many hours they're going to the cemetery, how many hours are in the sewer. Some things we changed right away, but we still have until July, to get all the spring hours, because it started in July of last year. So some of the wages and the allocations are gonna stay the same until I can get another several months, since we're just starting spring. And the DPW has 4 seasons to work and allocate their hours, so some, we've worked together. I think we've put it in the best we can of what we foresee, but doesn't mean like we might want to change from 7% to 10% of someone working at the cemetery versus the park. So it's kind of, the wages are put in, allocated the best that we, to our knowledge, as right now. Things could change a little, but that's what a budget amendment's for. If we change, because the cemetery is gonna go higher, that means somewhere else is gonna go lower. So the wages as a whole won't change. It's just probably the percentage in one department might change and might decrease or increase, but where one increases, the other decreases, so. Just that, there aren't very many big ticket expenses this year. I mean, backhoe, tires, tie rods and springs, general maintenance stuff. Most big ticket items are coming with grants, the kayak launch, which that funding has been pushed aside. I just got an email after we left finances from C2AE, the bidding for the streets in the parking lot and then the kayak launch are almost done, so we'll hopefully get those bids soon. They are obviously behind just because we added the parking lot in there. But those are all things that have been budgeted prior to this, so. You know, some things are going up in prices membership wise. Kim and I are doing our due diligence to try to find either a different company or figure out how to lower it, having a subscription annually versus monthly. So there are some things that are still in the works. The budget summary, which has what we levy for our millages and taxable value, was the rough draft, I guess, in easy terms, was approved by the county and came back. So tomorrow, Cam, our assessor, will be inputting all that stuff to send the final to the county, and then we will have final numbers that in early May. So it's somewhat close to what we will be bringing in tax wise. So I put all those numbers into our budget I foresee them possibly going up just a little bit, but most of the mills are correct that are on the budget summary, except for city operating, I think will fall a little more than what it is. Yeah, that's about it. I did put, at the end of each fund, the newest edition or uploaded version of the budget that Kim put in, not too long before the meeting. I added if the fund increased and by how much for revenues or decreased, and same with expenses. So the biggest department would be the cemetery, which we spoke about in the finances, and that's not there to make money, but we lose money every year.
We lose money, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Cemeteries are. Nothing.
Can't, like,
They had a
we're
profit
not gonna go on a
making
mass million degree.
Yeah.
So we can build a cemetery. So
They're kind of a money kid.
Yeah. So I budget low, I did last year too, I budgeted low last year, budgeted low this year. So it looks like we're gonna lose money again, but
Which we can,
We
they
can
talked to the
raise-
finance meeting about raising the rates of the plots for outside the city residents.
non-residents, yeah.
We already did raise, the burials on weekends and after hours because of overtime for. That was done, so the next thing is, we're pretty low.
And that was enough to cover the actual expenses?
No,
Well, it deters people from having them, which is kind of what we don't want them to have them.
they just schedule for an off day.
Yeah, which we've had happen, like since we've done it, there's
Yeah.
a couple people like, oh, well, we'll have it on Friday, not Saturday, Sunday.
So it's reduced the amount that we're losing,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
so that number is getting smaller, but
yeah,
it's one of those things.
we are
We
probably.
still have to mow, and we still have supported johns out there that we have to pay for. Trees.
Yeah, yeah.
But thankfully we do have.
If they keep going, you're not gonna have any trees left.
Yeah, I know.
As
Uh,
far as the budget goes, I'm assuming that the budget gets shaped by planned things we're gonna do for the,
Part of the master plan, yeah.
Fast pen CIP, but we.
that will, again, back to being rookies. Well, and perhaps next week's meeting will answer a lot of my questions as far as the CIP, and what our plans are. We are not in line, we're not gonna do any more bonding soon. Is there a plan for that?
I don't have a plan for it, so. The only thing that makes me question that though would be the lagoons.
That's,
Having over, that would be the, yeah, that, I set aside or. Transferred to the CIP for this fiscal year, $100,000 from the sewer, because we could do it, and I have another 100,000 for next fiscal year. Which that one will play by year as the year goes on. When it gets to the end, I don't do the transfers to CIP until the end of the fiscal year. Because if it's not doable, then we are not gonna transfer that money and put it over there. So the plan is 100 this year. Plan is 100 next year. That's 200,000, and we have over $1 million project coming. So
Dave, did you do the testing on the lagoon job?
For the site sample, no.
Okay. And I wasn't sure when you were doing that, because that would tell us if it's getting worse or not, so.
That's to be done yet.
Yeah, okay.
It was a little, I was, yeah, we usually do it at the end of April. It's a little cold to be on the lakes.
So that would tell us, how quickly that lagoon has gotta get done.
Yeah.
So once we get.
what
the
would they
first
say, last year they figured 3 years?
yeah. So even then, if we were to
so
pull
worst
100
case,
every
we
year,
could
it's
put it
300,000.
off
For another,
for a couple more.
Yeah.
thing. That we can build up some more money to do it too. so.
And I don't remember, what is the balance in there now? 8?
The
Seems like,
sewer
Yeah.
is, well, it looks higher because all the depreciation
oh,
is in there. So the sewer
That's
always
piece
looks
of all
higher
other
because
shit.
it's its own enterprise, so we have to include it, the depreciation, so
How much cash is in the bank?
I'd have to apply. Just to
Okay.
make sure, couple 100,000.
Not much.
No, the sewer's always been rough because we've not increased our sewer rates for 2 decades, so. That does help. I was looking at it more today, and it helps, but we're still teetering, we could. Just because of that project, once the project is done, then it'll be good for.
Yeah.
For
2 decades,
15 years.
right, however, depending on the state and what they're regulating.
Dave, how long ago was it that the sewers got a major redo? You put new
We rewrapped it.
plastic in and new rock.
No, it's all clay and wrap. We took the plastic line out.
Okay, and lined it with clay.
Yes, that was, Gary was here, so it had. It seems like we just
15?
did it, but it had to be 15.
15,
probably
18,
16,
somewhere in
yeah,
there?
Somewhere in there.
And that was,
And we had,
off the top of my head, wasn't that around $1 million deal? Plus? Or even 2?
yes, because
And
that
we had
also,
the money to
because
pay
that
for it.
also included the cleaning of the one pond.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for all 3,
We wrapped all 3, but we only cleaned one.
and now cleaning for 1 is $1 million, or close to $1 million.
Correct, but that was one of the small ponds,
Yeah.
the.
So we should have done it back then, so that we
Yeah,
could save
because,
money
well,
today.
Well,
Well,
we're
we
also
should be
looking
doing
at-
it again now.
You're also looking at, the one we cleaned was a 6.5 acre pond, and the one that's currently on the schedule is a 12 acre.
And that was over $1 million.
Yes,
Okay,
So if we have to do the smaller ones, they were I think 700,
yeah,
and then the big one is over $1 million.
okay, so now we've got a little more context.
So on that size, it'd have to be voted on, wouldn't it? Especially because it's for an enterprise fund.
Yeah, we should vote on
Any
it.
bond would.
I would always bring up, I would never.
But
Voted legally.
voted by the public,
By the
not by
public, yeah, not
council.
by- no,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it'd be a Kim job.
well, the reason I bring up all of the above, what if we get some weird ideas that we would like this project or that project? We really see a need and would like to do that. How do we inject that into a budget?
I mean, the
You know, this
CIP
is all here because that's what's been here. But how do we curve it or shape it or?
The
change-
CIP and the master plan update, that's what helps shape.
Because your master plans, you update that every 10 years.
And that's
So you
where
wanna
we
look
need
10
our
years
heads
in advance.
exercised
Yeah, and that's what we
to
got the
get a
grant for
better
this year,
grasp
too.
of that.
The CIP is done every year with the budget, but you want to look ahead for the CIP. Like if you have a big project, you want to put that in the CIP because we can slowly,
And
Put it
when
in
was the
there.
CIP done last year?
at the same time, the budget.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't add anything, I don't think, to the CIP because we had things in there.
Are
and
we
were
gonna
still-
do it very soon then ourselves?
That's what
Yeah,
was
that's what
given
we've
to you
been-
last month
Yeah,
to look at. That's
yeah,
how,
to come up with things to put in the CIP.
For 25,
26, yeah.
And some of the times those things sit in there for years,
Yeah, you
Um,
can just change the date, like, oh, well, we were gonna have the funds to
Right.
do.
but we're gonna
That-
still keep putting money in every year to get to there.
towards, yeah.
Because I mean, we think we did that with one of the trucks, didn't we? Was in there for a while
Yeah.
and. You know, we just kept.
And
saving away.
truck wise, equipment wise, you're in fairly
we're fairly
decent
decent
shape.
shape. We've come leaps and bounds in the last 4 or 5 years as far as.
Well, we're really,
We didn't buy anything new, but we upgraded dramatically from where we were at.
Bucket
check
truck
the
is
box.
safer than it's ever been.
Plans, so that's
Oh,
why we-
yes. Yeah,
If you do
I
it
don't,
the right way.
I don't shake when I go.
Now, do you need, is this informational or do you need anything approved right now since it's a preliminary?
No, if there's stuff you want changed, now,
This is the time when if you've looked over the
now in
budget.
May, now in May, if you have
Something.
something that you need to change, or you need to bring, or do something now, because June we have to adopt it, it has to be.
Yeah.
So May will be, in May will be public. This goes to the public in May. So they can come in May, we have what, 6 days, is it 6 days that you have to have it? I have paper before, 6 days before,
Yeah.
so that they can come in and voice their opinions. So if you have anything now, like, we're gonna bring in cemetery. Stuff like the lots, increasing what everyone's doing around. In the area, but if there's anything else, we can talk about elections and Kim.
We have done a little bit of legwork with the cemetery as far as the plots, and so we should have, that should be an easy thing to vote on next month, to very close to where we want it.
Research in the meantime. to-
Yeah, we've done a little research. We know we're way down the lowest.
Yeah.
We have actual funeral homes that tell us we're too cheap. So.
The total summary for the budget is we're basically bringing in 1.6 million, appropriating 1.13, and we're gonna have 484 to give it.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Yeah,
It's just the certain departments that don't. So the one thing that we can do for like the cemetery, we can transfer from the general fund into the cemetery. There's nothing saying we can't, but that's something that has to be approved. I can just move money from one fund to another fund.
I see aligned wages with the new minimum wage structure. We didn't pay enough to meet minimum wage.
No, it's just restructuring and like, what is the word I'm looking for? I know I'm pulling wage increases.
Yeah, so when
Raises, that's
yeah.
what I was trying to say.
when minimum wage goes up considerably, that's what you base raises going up. So, you know.
Oh, so even though you were above minimum wage,
Yeah,
just minimum wage went from here to
It
here,
was the cost of
you do
living
the
has gone
same
up, so-
percentage.
Inflation. and
Oh,
everything. So
yes.
that's just how I worded it on there.
Okay,
That's how my brain was thinking.
well, it makes sense now that you give it a little more context. You only had one line.
I think for some of us, it's tough because it doesn't, the wages are spread out between so many different funds, you really can't easily say, oh, how much is this person actually getting for a rate?
I can
well,
email.
That would be great, yeah.
I say,
just-
don't we
just so
have-
we
well,
don't
we have it by
check.
percentage, didn't we have a percentage?
I may have missed it, there's just a lot of sheets.
Oh,
out
I know.
there. So,
I'll just send in the email.
yeah, that would be, I think, useful for everybody, or anyways.
I mean, you can do our yearly salaries and before and with rings and.
Yeah, that'd be, yeah.
Yeah, you can add them. If you really want to, you can just take this and add it to this and then add it to
That
this.
sounds like fun, yeah.
Actually, Scott came in earlier and I showed him the spreadsheet where it takes the wages and pulls it over here and then it takes the percentage. And then it takes it on another tab that, yeah.
Why he's being really quiet.
Yeah, he came in and,
Yeah.
I was like, see, this is really fun. This took me a very long time to revamp and get the right
Well, and-
calculation.
That's why I think and I might be speaking for half everybody else, but at least personally. Yeah, I understand it, but I can't get a grasp on a number anytime because that number's here.
Yeah.
And for me to figure it out and then move on to the next line
Mhm.
and
Well, it's kind of like our
No.
job to do that part. This is for your information. It's your guys' job to approve what we put in front of you, but it's
if
not
we
your,
understand it.
well, but it's not for you to like, be like, oh, okay. You're just seeing, you want to look at it as a big picture,
Mhm.
like what you just said, what we're getting in, what we're taking out, and making sure that, you don't have to know all of those numbers and all the, I mean, I know you want to understand that.
But if I am inclined to feel like I want to peel 10% out of this whole pile so that we can redirect it to something else.
Then you can suggest
Yeah.
it. And you can suggest where you see there's a,
But
I mean. you
I'm
can
not
approve
knowledgeable
it.
enough to be able to go to that.
Well, I mean, and
Really.
if you were gonna,
I mean, it'd
if
be
you were
stupid to
gonna,
be that stupid.
well, if you were gonna, say, hey, I wanna put 10% of any of these budget. The individual budget somewhere else. then we would suggest to you which ones to take it from. I mean, that's our jobs to do, where your guys' jobs is to ask those questions and ask where we can do that and move that and put them where
Yeah.
we want. I mean, I feel like sometimes, you guys are like trying to figure it all out and it's just not part of what you're supposed to do, that, you're supposed to, make the policies, we're supposed to follow them. As far as money goes, you guys get to decide,
We also need to make rational
right,
policies.
which is where asking us the questions and saying, what do you, where would we take it? If we want to do this, we want to do this project, I want to take it from something else. We'll say, you're not gonna be able to do
No.
that because of this, and that.
I feel that my position here is to do, and the purpose of government is to do for the people that live here and pay taxes here.
Correct.
And if we're not doing that, then why do we even exist?
Right. Yep.
And that's gotta be uppermost on our minds all the time.
Yep.
Why are we here? What are we supposed to be? Why are we doing what we're doing?
Right.
We're doing it because we don't
Well,
want
I
to
think-
drive on potholed roads.
Right, I think the city council and the people that work here, most of us have lived here and grew up here and
Yeah.
care about this town, so I think that is all of our goals, is to make it better. There's, very rarely have I seen somebody go, oh, no, we're not doing that, like, if somebody has an idea,
But
it sounds
bog-
great.
to bog the money down into places that maybe we could take a bit out of here and take a bit out of there, and it's not gonna truly be missed because we're gonna put it into a project that has been missed or neglected, and you get what I'm saying.
Right, yeah, like I think, with the lagoons, we should have raised the rates, which was brought to different councils and never was done. That should have been done.
Never
a
was raised.
long time ago, long time ago. I mean, every training I went to from the time I've been here, they reminded us of that. Like, everyone's in this boat, so, we tried. I mean, since I've been here, we tried, and
We
I
all
know it
like
was
a
tried.
true value.
So, yeah, I
Right.
mean, that's one of those things that we're in a pickle where we don't have the money, and we're trying to, but we're catching up and.
But
I mean, that's an
On the
example.
flip side, we were able to pay, the sewer had always funded itself and had survived.
And so-
Obviously, there wasn't a lookout far enough.
Well, until we
realize-
also got slammed with new testing,
Regulations.
expenses that, we were not prepared for. That cost us a lot of money. I mean, we had what?
And how
A
can you
company that had
anticipate
come in,
that?
no, we can't, yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's one of those things, but will we get it done? I believe we will, I believe we'll come up with the money, we'll figure it out, we'll get it done,
We have to.
and yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we don't have a
No
choice, but I think we're sitting really well as a community with our money, that we still will be, even having to come up with, those things that we do. I mean, is that where we want to put our money? No, nobody wants to spend that kind of money.
On a
Sewer,
And- and,
But it's one of those things.
I mean, going back to like looking at your budget, Danelle's, trying to split it out so we have better numbers of what is actually going on, because it was so clumped together.
Well,
You didn't know where you could pull things out before. Now we're getting a better understanding of where are we spending money, where are we spending too much money, how do we decrease it? Because I know she's going through that. 'Cause her and I are talking a little bit, it's like, all right, where can we take some money, or where are we putting too much money into something where we can cut back?
Right, like the sewer wages will be cut back
Yep, so it's,
because.
she's trying to
29%
simplify it, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot in this budget.
well,
Simplify it. A lot of it's regarding.
now I understand what all the numbers are
Yeah.
about, and that this is a state mandated set of numbers.
Yeah.
The account. Could we have a stupid looking budget for the rest of us.
If she has time, I mean, she could try.
You
I mean,
understand
you
what
want
I'm saying?
each department and the total, what it is gonna cost for each department, cause I mean, there's some that do that, there's some that just do it. Like
That's what
the
we did
treasurer's
before.
report and give, here's our.
Had a second set of book.
No, that's all you got. You did not get the detail. That's all you got. was
There's,
just the-
yeah, there's all sorts of different ways that,
Okay.
What everybody
This-
wanted
I
to
like
know
this way
about
to
everything
prepare,
was and where it
Yeah.
was
then when
going,
we
so-
adopt, you give a smaller one, where it's just the total of. What the clerk's department's gonna be, that you get the total, and when we adopt it. So for now, you get this, cause these are our numbers, these are where our money is, this is where everything's going. When we adopt it, you adopt that final number. And then it looks easier, I guess, in a way to say, it's still everything the same, but it just takes out all the money.
Right.
And just gives you the total of each department, and that's what. Adopt.
Am I correct to assume that even though we've got a budget and we pass a budget and we're all set and we're rolling, it's not in stone, is it?
No, well, I mean, we're like a weatherman.
Yes, that, we heard
I
that.
am like a
I heard that the other day.
weatherman.
I'm like, that's
not
what the
stand
budget is.
the
It's
weatherman,
like the
because look at
weather.
Everything that happens with our weather.
You try to predict it, but never right.
Yeah, we can't foresee, yeah, you know,
So I appreciate what Tim and Kim both said, you know, the trainings we're taking. We're told that we need to know this stuff, but trust in you guys too, but the cemetery. You know, it's a sad situation when someone passes away, but I don't feel the city should be losing money on that. I mean, if I'm gonna bury someone on a weekend that it's gonna be overtime, I think the cemetery fee should be up to cover that. I mean, why are we losing money on that?
Shouldn't be subsidizing.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know what the cost of plots are, but is it the same whether you live in the city or not?
all
Well,
the
we
same
talked
right
about
now.
that in
Yeah,
finance.
So most other places
are different, right?
are different. There should be a,
Resident, non-resident is what we talked about in finance.
so yeah, funerals are expensive, but I don't think that, and if I have someone pass away and it works for me to have a funeral on a weekend, I'm gonna have to pay that
Right.
price.
Exactly.
But I don't think that, I don't think our DPW should be losing money or the city should be losing money because someone passed away.
I mean, I don't think we should lose money either, but I also think there's certain things that you can't
You can't, yeah.
charge your way out of. I mean, Parks and Recreation, there's no income there. We can't
Correct.
fee ourselves out of having parks and
Right.
Rec. It's a quality of
Yes.
life issue. So but I do think that people that don't live in the city and don't pay city taxes shouldn't be getting the same benefit as residents. So that's why I say I think we should move to a two-tiered system, that non-residents that want to utilize our cemeteries have to pay a little more for that privilege. And those type of things I think are very,
And what are we losing? I mean, what is, that could change every year, but you know, are we losing $25 on a weekend or is it substantial enough that?
Or
Well, that's why we
25.
raised it, because
Yeah.
it was getting to the point where everyone was having weekend and,
Mhm.
you know, after hours, and it was like,
Right.
this is costing us a lot of money, because everybody's getting overtime to go out and, you know, do the
Right,
burial.
and that number varies drastically on whether they're doing a cremation
Yep.
or a full burial.
Or they sit and just.
Cremation, you just grab a shovel.
Well, and I mean,
But it costs.
you think about it, you buy a plot for $400 and we have to upkeep it as a city for ever. So it's one of those, you know, it's talked about in every training I've been in, everybody's just like, oh, it's okay. Because, you know, it's that. thing Nobody wants to talk about, nobody wants
Yeah.
to make it.
The debt's not gonna pay for it, so.
Well, and the city
Yeah.
does a very good job of keeping that up.
No, I mean, and I think the amount of work you guys have put into the budget is commendable. I mean, that is a ton of work to balance that, and everyone here is working for the same goals, betterment of the city. It just would be nice if when we walked out of here, that we maybe did have a version of the budget that was digestible, so when you hear someone complaining about how high our taxes are,
Yeah.
you can answer them and say, look, well, one, you can move, or two, appreciate what you have. Doesn't look like our mills are out of line.
Oh, no,
No.
we have. Ours is. Oh,
Yeah, it'd just be nice to be able to distill that information down to
I've been told that we're higher than Okemos,
that's.
Meridian Township.
No,
Oh, Meridian's like really high, actually.
But it's like some of these are voted on, right? Yeah, so. no,
Right, you guys.
Yeah, you got it,
A
so.
lot of times, those are people that, you know, and you gotta look at who, where they are. Yeah, and you know, how long they've been at a place too.
My brief stint on the board of review is they come in, they look at their whole taxes and they think that's what goes to the city of Laingsburg, and it's not. By the time you take EMS out and the county and the veterans and all of that stuff, the city's taxes are very
Higher,
small.
yeah, which, you know, to
But
now
nobody
get
looks
that
at
pie, to get that pie chart together, which
Mhm.
I think is awesome, because not only if they don't look at it when they get it in their bill, we're gonna be able to hear
Yeah.
when they come in.
Come summer taxes, I'll have that pie chart along with more explanation on a whole page. That was just a
Go with
newsletter
the
that,
tax bill,
yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be.
so instead of,
It'll
you know,
explain it more, essentially, I mean, how many, I mean, I don't, when I came into this, one thing that I did not know was a lot of how property taxes work. Like, I've learned so much with millage, about millages and that, and uncapping, no one knows what that is.
yeah, that's.
You sell your house, you've been in it for
Doesn't sound
20
good.
years. Well, yeah, you sell your house that you've had for 20 years, and that buyer that is getting your house, they see the taxes, it was 1,000, well, it's gonna go up to probably $5,000 because their house is worth more because it.
Because that
uncapped.
uncapped.
Yeah,
Right.
it's being
There are
uncapped
people,
and,
that's what most of the people come in for board of review.
yep,
The one I
It's 'cause
don't
they're
get
property
is
tax
the
uncapped.
Headley override.
That-
What-
We'll tackle that, I don't know.
Okay,
That is a whole beast. of
that's
its own.
town hall.
Maybe later.
All right, are we done with the budget then? Okay, let's move on to the Manor Group Health Insurance.
yeah, that's a lot of paperwork too, but it's gone, the one we have right now has jumped up quite a bit. We had a meeting with a Manor, and they explained that this is kind of the, you know, backlash of COVID and inflation, and we're getting hammered. All of them, all the way across. I mean, insurance never goes down, but this one was considerably more than what we normally do. That's why I gave you all of these to look at. There's quite a big difference between the insurance companies. HAP is basically, if we move to HAP, most of the doctors are in the Flint area. So,
Everything that everyone would have would be out of network, basically.
Yeah.
if we were to do that.
so it would be, you know, for employees here, they would be more, you know, in that end of, opposite end of Shiawassee County area. And it's also a little bit stricter HMO. You'd have to start from the beginning, like with your medications, doctors. They wouldn't wanna, you know, put you through the whole rigor to switch over to them.
Was this
Um,
increase reflected in the preliminary budget worksheet you guys gave us?
Yeah.
It's so.
Was it, I can't remember when we got it, if it was on that one or not.
It should be.
Okay.
That's like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure I put the new ones in. So the one thing that, is Sandra will be dropping off. There's 21,000 a year. Yes, we'll probably get someone that'll have insurance, but they're most likely premium will be lower. Because premiums are based on age. That's just a matter of fact. That's how it is. So more than likely, they will be younger. So that will be maybe what my family of 5 is 17,000 a year. So I would assume they're probably gonna be around 13 to 18. Still savings are, I dropped the insurance and I'm going with my husband, whether it's better or not, just so that we save $17,000 a year. So even though we're increasing 9,000 a year, that is including having myself on there, having Sandra on there. It's a whole year, so 9,000 for the whole year. So technically, that's going to actually decline because
They did say that they thought this was gonna be the last big hike. That
Yeah,
it was
since
gonna
COVID.
plateau and
Oh, sure.
it's gonna go up. It's always gonna go up, that's for sure, but.
So.
Well, and I don't know, these guys aren't actually insurance companies, they're the ones who find out.
They're the broker.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're bidding it.
so, the difference the way I look at it is if we switch. If everyone was staying on and if it was, it's like $2,000 difference. If we switch to a different
Like,
insurance
you
company,
talk
from the
about
lowest to
option
what we're paying.
Oh, I was looking at the current gold option 2
Mhm.
versus the gold option 4.
Right.
And it appears the big difference is the individual and family deductible doubles on 4. And then in
then
some spots, it's a little less.
Yeah.
And then in
What was the finance committee's review and recommendation of it?
We didn't necessarily come up with a recommendation. We came up with 2 or 4. So for the deductibles double from 2,000 to 1,000. The co-insurance goes down 1,500 for a single and 3,000 for a family. But the annual out of pocket goes up 950 for an individual and 1,900 for a family. Prescription drugs are a little bit cheaper. But all in all, total, it would save us $1,939.92 a month. And that's
That's
not,
if everybody stayed.
yeah, and that's including everybody stays.
Well, that
It
was,
would save the city that amount of money, but it would cost our employees a heck of a lot more, and
Yes.
I think we're only giving $1 an hour or something like that,
Yep.
that's not even gonna. I mean, if we wanna keep
the deductible.
workers here, we're gonna need to.
It's the big picture again.
Is the city? Am I correct with my assumption? The city pays the insurance totally, don't?
Yeah.
There's no,
No.
each employee doesn't throw in
Right.
$20 a paycheck for insurance.
No.
City's paying full boat.
I don't remember, do we give employees that don't take the health insurance, what was that?
Not very.
2,500, isn't it?
Right now, it's like 1,200, and I don't think it's nearly enough.
Well, that is a kind of a thing, because, I mean, we're conscious of it because we're from Laingsburg and we love Laingsburg.
Right.
So yeah, that is something that probably should change to give incentive not to take the insurance if you really don't need it.
And
And
that's,
it's not a very good incentive.
So right now it's an FSA.
Yes,
So if you don't take it, you get, well, if you don't take insurance, you get $1,000
still that-
FSA. Plus another 1,200, or no,
you get $1,000, like, it goes in your FSA, and you have the option to
to
put
pay it out.
1,500 back into it or be paid out for
Yeah.
it. So it's like, basically you get $1,500 if you don't take the insurance. Which
Yeah.
is not a very good incentive, so
Seems like when we first started that, it was 2,500, I'm
Well,
almost
that's
sure.
the total, that's the total, but the city,
But this was back in
Yeah.
2002.
yes,
It's not changed.
no, it has not gone, it's not gone
Okay.
up, it's up to nothing, yeah.
Okay.
And now if you take the insurance, you
Yeah.
get $1,000 and you can put in up to 2,500, so. You're basically making,
And if you don't use everything in the FSA in a year, you lose. Up to
you
a
don't get
certain.
it, well, some of it rolls
Some
over.
rolls over.
6 something.
The issue
Yeah.
at hand though is this policy right now. And I would say this policy, I would not be in favor of reducing the medical coverage of our employees for a minimal savings.
Right.
That would not be something I would be in favor of. So I would make a motion to keep the health insurance at its current level.
I'll support it.
Any more discussion? Roll call. Money. That'd be liberal calls, make you all say.
Miller,
Yes.
Ennis,
Yes.
Leonard.
Yeah.
Craig,
Yes.
Dedek,
Yes.
Frank. Yes. Peters.
Yes. There's roll call.
Here you go, Dave.
All right, so that one's approved. All right, motions to approve the handbook.
I make a motion to the handbook.
I'll support it.
Okay, got a motion to support. Any discussion on it?
What? Is this updated from a previous one or just the re-up that happens annually or?
No, this is all new. The handbook has not been, I don't know when the last time the handbook was redone. I don't know. Okay. We purchased a, lawyer written handbook from, MML. So I took that
And stuff in,
and put our policies and everything, which are like, you know, parentheses when they were adopted and all that stuff. So, it's basically our old policy with all the stuff that needs to go in there now. That's been
in
updated.
addition to,
That stuff
Right.
and all the other good stuff. I mean, that's what kind of pushed us to redo it, because we knew we had to put that in there. There was a lot of stuff in there that we don't have. So it's basically, I didn't change anything from our old one that's been approved by previous boards. I just moved everything that needed to go into it up to date.
to bring it to date.
Because
Sorry, so I do have some questions. Background checks. Explain to me how that, so my big concern overall is. Are we doing fingerprinting? Are we doing like sex offender? What can we do as a municipality? Is it?
So for regular city employees, we would run them through iChat. We would spend $10 or $20 to run to see if they have criminal convictions.
Okay.
Police department aspect side, it's a lot more in depth, and that's all covered through MPOS, which is our licensing. But on the city aspect, as long as we run a driving record and we run them through iChat, that would come up if they have criminal records or they've been fingerprinted.
And we've all.
And do we currently do that before we hire someone now?
We haven't, I've run them through my different programs that I have, but, through records management systems, which I can do legally, but I cannot run them through the law enforcement information network, criminal background. That's why we have to go through iChat for the rest of the city employees.
So does municipalities be able to do like a live scan? So you have the state and the FBI or
No.
is that not? Okay.
We can't do the live scan for just regular. The only ones that do that are the ones that have access to where my computer is. Then they had to be fingerprinted, background checked.
So all
And
of
that's
us in the
required.
office have
Okay.
that.
So everybody in our office has been fingerprinted and background checked through FBI and that type of thing. But that's because they have access to criminal justice information. Otherwise, like Dave and them, they don't really have that access. But they've been background checked, so. Or fingerprinted. Because Dave was printed- Yeah, because they have access through the locking system. So they've been background checked as well.
So that's one of my big concerns, and has been for years. So I would hope, I know this is in the handbook. I don't know if we have a policy for like new hires, if that's something going down the road that we need to do, but I strongly believe that before we hire someone, that this needs to be done, and then maybe even on review time, another iChat gets done. I know in my world, we do iChats all the time.
Well,
it's-
yeah, because you run them through your system.
But
Anytime he
iChat,
hires
right,
anybody.
iChat is only good at the time you do it.
Right.
I go out and do
Well,
something.
I don't know if that, if,
iChat would be any prior criminal record.
Correct.
yeah,
But I go this week, you hire me today, I go this weekend and get crazy.
Right.
You guys don't get an update from an iChat.
no.
So I would suggest that on review time, another iChat is done. Just, and again, mine's coming from education world, but that's what happens.
And I think it's $20 per person.
Yeah. So that's my only thing there. And then I just seen, there's just a couple typos that I know you guys have fixed.
No, he's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I looked at that thing.
crossing our eyes.
I know, you look
I
at it
know.
like-
And I was like.
I
did
said
you
to
miss
them
this
guys,
page?
it's page 75 and 77.
75 and 77. And it might be, from taking it from Word
Yes.
to Yeah, cause I
Yeah.
found that too, and I was like, great.
And is it appropriate to leave company in there rather than city of
missed
Laingsburg?
Oh, I missed one?
Okay.
Man, I thought I caught those.
Well,
Oh,
again, you can look at it so many times. it
Yes.
All goes together.
That's why I just gave it to Dan and I'm like, I can't look at this anymore. I don't
between
have that
three
seen
of us, we missed it.
Yeah.
so.
But I do like this and that a new employee will get this, but
Yes.
again, I don't know what our hiring policies are, and that could be next month's meeting, but,
Yeah, is that a totally different document?
They get a packet, which I was gonna.
but no,
It's all online.
No, I'm
actually, but-
thinking more like, what is our hiring process? Does the job get posted?
Yeah.
And then you interview? And then you go through, this
Well,
process.
the clerk, the treasurer has to be, and I think Dan's, the chief, have to be public.
And Dave
Council.
probably does.
And Dave's,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
But so,
All heads of
Dave's
department.
people and like, Cassie, that position would be interviewed by us.
so it's posted, so like
Yeah.
Dave's gonna come on and start bringing on summer people, that's a job that's posted and
Yeah.
people do applications and then,
Yep,
Yes.
we have an application, the posting goes on the website.
okay.
And
You know,
we're
and that also all gets run through Dan's.
And then
Yes.
then all those applications go through Dan, and then he picks who he's gonna hire, and then we interview our people, and then you guys. It has to be an open meeting.
Okay,
And we use that same process when we bring in community service people too.
okay,
Yeah, if we get volunteers too, they have to.
but I know in
go
the
through a whole
past,
thing.
that wasn't always the case, so I wanna
Right.
make sure that that is our policy.
Yes, it is, and it is documented. We actually have paperwork that they fill out and they are aware that they're gonna do background checks and.
And that's a policy that we can see how our hiring process is.
We have a
Yes.
packet, and it has everything, the first page has every single thing
Yeah.
that needs to be filled out and done. So
By,
when they get- when they're
by the
hired,
city as,
Yeah.
as well as the new employee, by the city though, even before they choose someone to fill all the packet out.
Well, we will probably
You know,
wouldn't
the-
give them
the
the whole
cities-
packet if we weren't gonna.
Right, but
Yeah,
I'm kind of talking before that.
The city's
Sorry,
policy.
the job application.
Yeah, well, or more, does the council have a policy on how we hire people? That we know it's gonna be, and maybe we don't need that, but that we're gonna have a job posting, we're gonna do interviews, we're gonna,
Basically, is it written down?
yes,
It's in
is there a
documentation.
policy? Or is it just,
We know.
we have an opening and then,
Well, you have an
Yeah.
employee handbook and then you have an HR policy manual.
right,
I know what you're.
so
Like an
it's
operations
before,
manual.
Yeah.
it's before
Basic,
someone
yeah.
gets hired, how
Policy
do
procedure.
we know? As a council that we're hiring someone? I mean, what is the
Well,
process for
For
that?
like seasonal help, you wouldn't probably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
we would.
we're in charge of our departments, so we don't have to come to you to hire somebody. I mean, granted, we can't hire somebody outside of what's already here, like a new position.
Right.
But like, if Cassie left, we would put out an application, and then Danelle and I would do the interviews, hire the person, run them through all the stuff, have them fill out all the paperwork.
If it came to you, then we get involved. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you take care of it.
Yes, each supervisor is in charge of their own department.
So I guess that's where I'm at. So the supervisor's gonna say, I have an opening, we need to post the job, and you're gonna post the job.
Right.
Okay,
Now, obviously, if they're one of us leaves, then it's whole,
That's a.
yes,
a lot more.
Okay.
stuff.
Someone else just went through.
But we all feel the same paperwork out, we all do
okay,
the same
yeah,
stuff.
I was just I had, I guess, two things, but, as long as. I know that fingerprinting or that background check is part of the hiring
Yes.
process.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion we already had motion. That's the end of my discussion.
Any further discussion? All right.
Motion.
Funeral
Miller needed-
bereavement,
About it.
correction.
There's some correction in there, Diesel, please.
So
I looked at it way too long.
let's
Page
do all
13.
all in favor to approve and adopt the handbook. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Overvote.
And thank you for that.
All right, motion to approve the resignation of Mike Nadevsky for the planning commission.
I make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Don't want to take them all.
Who's left? How many people are left? Like,
Well, we got one and we lost one, so.
We're still minus some.
Yeah,
they
we
did
need
just
two.
get another one? Okay,
We got one and then I got a
How
resignation
many
like
are
that
in
week.
total?
there's supposed to be like six
Supposed to be
total, right?
7.
7?
7 total, and we
You
have
got
5
Oh, you do have 5.
with Greg.
I somehow slipped into that role. Because I sat here during the meeting. It just threw me.
All right. I thought there was like, honestly, I thought there was like 2 people, so I'm happy to hear.
Well, there is 2 people, because we would like to give Greg not to have to be on that board, but there's 2 openings.
No, I thought there was only like 2 people.
Oh, no, no.
So I thought
no.
like, I felt like, it just seemed like a lot of people.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
happy to hear there's more than that.
Unfortunately, so yeah, if you know anybody.
Yeah.
And we now have an opening for somebody outside the city too, so, because Mike was one of our people, so
Yeah. That was my.
we'll take him,
We get a second one.
Yes.
yes.
Did you say outside of the city?
Yeah, you can have 2 members outside of the city limits.
To
on
be
the
on
planning.
planning.
And we have 1. Mike was the other one, so now we have 1 opening. for now.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Nope, all in favor to accept his resignation?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's straightforward. Next resignation. Sandra Chavez. From the library. Make a motion. Any second? Or any discussion? Okay, all in favor for accepting her resignation? Aye. Any opposed? Let's move forward to the next resignation. Drop it like flies. Mary Stevens.
Make a motion to accept her resignation, Mary Stevens' resignation.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carry forward. All right, 221 South Lang Street.
Okay, there's no information for you guys, except that this person would like to sell his house and wanted to know if the city wanted to purchase it. If you are interested at all, then I'll get all the information, but just.
I personally would rather get away from owning houses in the city.
I mean,
Don't.
Yeah, it's the house that's behind.
Dave Gilson?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's the Gilson house, and it's right behind the,
Can't see me.
Right behind
the
car wash.
car wash, yeah.
How much property is there?
To the city.
It's just that lot, I believe.
It goes from. Is that's Lang Street,
Yeah.
South Lang.
Yeah.
To,
Where the barn is, if you step right at the edge of that barn, that's the end of the property. Yeah.
well, that's right, because Dane owned the barn.
Yes.
Does he still?
No.
So that's owned by somebody else? No. The barn.
Where is it?
Over to-
Right behind the car wash.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, it's all one owner.
But isn't that right?
Is that the very first house, like the car wash, like it's here, and there's the house, like.
barn.
I wonder if
The
they-
city house, right,
Oh,
if you
Kelly.
have that barn.
To
Yeah.
the
Well,
back
It
side.
hasn't
Tear it
been
down
in
and burn it down.
a while.
That's
like
what
years.
I drove by,
Yeah.
but I was like, but
It's
that
very
That-
bad
that would go around the car wash.
It's not very good shape.
So where are the critters?
It's right in the-
Now we're gonna.
I don't
eliminate
care,
them on the
they're
town.
elevated already, so.
Yeah.
On the town.
I don't think so, because I think it's.
Why is he asking the
goes
city to
over
buy it?
too far.
What, is
Just
there a
common
reason
courtesy,
they
man.
want the city to buy it?
She just offered it to the city. Her husband has passed away and she,
Oh, really?
this was the first, we were the first
Girl.
one. No, she did not. That's why I'm like,
Cross.
Is it
if
a
you
dollar?
guys want it, then I'll dig deeper. But I asked her and she said, I have no idea.
I'm not interested in becoming a real estate agency.
I make a motion, we pass.
Or,
Or
any discussion on it? It is too
Should
far
we-
away from the housing development.
It is.
And.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have a list. On a map of all city properties. For instance, is everyone aware that we have that chunk up on
I
Abbott
believe it's in
and
the, Master plan, all of our,
Abbott and Treat? There's a,
at least our.
why do we own that? Why don't we sell that?
Why don't we
things
develop
like
it?
that.
Right,
Why don't, yeah, we could develop it too.
yeah.
As the town hall meeting.
Yeah.
All right, let's moving on. Schedule of hourly employee reviews. Yearly schedule of reviews for the city of Laingsburg hourly employees.
So we had made a motion to do ours in October, the pets. Or I guess well, I don't know, ours. We made a motion back in October. This is for all of our employees, all the rest of them,
The non-commit, non-department heads.
yes. So,
And the
They would-
department heads will be doing the review.
yes, this is just putting in stone that we will be
Do we
doing.
need to approve this or you've got?
Yeah,
Do you have a rubric that you guys use?
well, Dave's doing all the research on this.
Yeah.
Dave.
So we are gonna be
Well-
ready.
Well, MML should have something for you, I would think. Yeah. But you go, Dave.
Need a motion to support that?
No, I'll make the motion, we support the schedule.
Second. Okay, any discussion?
Would it make sense to have those reviews done in March, the month before the final preliminary budget, because that would have rate increases in it?
Well, that's kind of why we're like past March, so we have to do them this year. so
Well,
we picked May.
You could be late this year, but if we're
Yeah.
gonna approve it
I
maybe
said-
March moving
I said
forward.
January.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, whatever, yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's
before-
what we originally were like, we should be doing. in
Mine are all
January.
covered under a contract, so I don't.
Yeah,
I think
you don't
mine are
have to.
exempt.
So this is like the drop dead, so you gotta have them done by May 1st and second, but you can do them anytime,
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously we can, but
unless you want it specifically listed.
If we're gonna give raises, I think we should have them before we give the raise. Would be the logical thing to do.
well,
Figured
approve the raises, yeah, because we will tell you what we think the raises should be, and then you have to approve them, and
So
we
what
don't have to
they-
tell you whether we,
I would say
why we did.
March.
So I'll amend my motion to March 1st and March 2nd. Or, yeah, March 1st, March 2nd.
But this year we'll do them in May,
Yes.
so this year we'll do them in May.
Yes,
2025, May. 26 forward.
Any other discussion?
I'll figure out how to write that.
All in favor? Any opposed? And move forward. Master plan, letter of agreement.
So I just got this today, that's why I put it in there in the very end. So this is the contract with Spices to do the master plan, to help us do the master plan. I went through it, looks, you know, what we want. I think they covered everything that, you know, we're gonna want in a master plan. They're the experts at doing these, so, and I, that's my Spices, so just need the approval.
This is the one that we have the grant for.
Yes.
So we're not spending
Yeah.
extra money on
Nope.
it, so. I need a motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Committee reports. Do we have any specific committee that needs to submit a report, or do you want to approve all at whatever the heck that wording is? Consent.
We don't really need to approve them.
Okay.
The library, I would just like to. I look at my calendar now, I'm sorry. So, we're gonna do a retirement celebration for Sandra and Mary on April 28th. Off the top of my head, I think it's starting at 4 o'clock and we'll go until the library closes that night. There's a committee that's getting together to,
You said 4 o'clock?
yes.
That's Sandra's retirement party.
Yes. Sandra and Mary Stevens. So, Mary's last day is the 28th and Sandra's is the 30th of April. So we'll have, they'll do invitations, but, we're gonna have some kind of a book out that people can stop in throughout the month of April and sign for both of them. So if you want to add that to calendars. That's all I have.
I know, I don't remember, but I was thinking of that house thing.
All right, any other committees want to submit anything, or you want to leave it in the packet for us to review our own? Any other items of business?
Question on the email app that we got.
Proton?
Last proton. Did we not use that this month or like?
I sent it to the wrong.
You said.
Oh, I did.
She's having a rough.
It's, you know what, it's already-
I'm just like wondering like what the intent behind it is. Like, are we using it?
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it. I'll tell you.
Proton should be being used so it protects you guys and your personal emails from.
Jason, hi, Jason.
I have you all saved in there and I probably picked the wrong
from
seat.
that.
Oh, yes.
I already have a proton
Yes.
that I can get in and out of, I do and use
Okay. Did you get into your one that we assigned to you?
once.
Oh.
And then I told this box, keep that information. Next time I went in, Proton says,
Oh, the password and everything.
Oh, I have. it.
Dylan has all the passwords. She can do it for you.
we could retry.
And
Cause I was
promise
gonna
send
say,
it
I'll
to the
just
right
give you
one.
that email address and use it.
Anything
I'm
else?
sorry, this
Pretty
one.
simple.
packet is
lemon.
better.
Any other business? All right.
Greg,
Move, huh?
I just want, in case anybody asks you guys, it is April, the park's open in April. It'll be the night before I open dates.
Okay.
Looking at the weather and temperature wise, so if they ask, it'll be open after them.
What do you mean, open the parks?
We don't have heat in the bathroom.
Bathrooms.
So
Gotcha.
there's the water shut off to it.
So you know
Yeah.
it's not.
So it's done getting to 22 degrees at night.
Yes.
I think about like their park equipment. Take my dog to the playground like that.
All right, move to adjourn?
Moment,
No, I haven't adjourned yet. What's that?
back to my budget. And wondering if. Looking Glass Terrace. Good neighbor of mine. They've had a problem with a drain there.
Yes.
And a road there.
Yes.
For years and years. I think they first visited council in 2018-19 about the road.
Yeah.
Is that
You mean
in this?
their road?
It is in the CIP.
I
to
don't know if that
redo
was
the
the first
road.
time, but they did in 22. They came here in 20.
It was scheduled for 2026 CIP. The issues that we have is they own the parking spots. The city owns the road. So we,
And how is
I
that?
have no idea.
Because out here on Grand River,
Makes no sense to me.
yeah,
I
So-
think from, and this could not be true, but though, this, what I've heard is that they let the city take the road. They originally owned it. And
yes,
then they let
that is true.
the city take the road. So we ended up with the road, but we
And-
apparently didn't
and
end
they
up with the.
wanted, my understanding was they wanted control of the parking spots, so they did not. follow
Oh, they didn't want, yeah, they didn't want city park
site.
side, so people couldn't
ordinances
park
for
there in the.
parking.
Now that you mention that. They wanted to control the parking so that they could assign parking.
They
for
could
each-
assign parking and they didn't have to follow our.
But now they're finding out they can't do that. Am I correct, Jody?
You are correct, they cannot have assigned parking. Oh, that's. a
So it
rule
doesn't
about-
really matter.
It's I mean, you don't want that, know that C2, this is their parking spot, so they cannot do that by rural development standards.
Correct, because that allows for people to say there's nobody home at that
Yeah.
address.
Number two on them. So it's on the 2026, it's in the CIP,
But they,
it'll be done then?
well, we're hoping that, because they don't want to do the roads without the parking.
Correct.
Because you have to do it all at once, so. I think it's on there, but it's gonna be whether they can do the,
Contingent on their. ability to do the
them
parking
being able
spots.
to do the.
So
parking
can I
spot.
take off can I step in the looking glass wall? We are, there's a few things where KMG was concerned about was the pricing that we were given for, the parking spots. KMG, which is our management company, felt that it was more in line, and I'm not techie here, but more in line with the grade of what a road would be. And they're comparing that to other parking lots that they have that they paid for. So they're thinking the price is higher because it's road grade, however you guys have to do,
Road grade base.
you know, is that different than what a parking lot would be that they would have at another apartment complex? So that's hitting, I mean, I think that price off the top of my head was like over $70,000.
Generally, parking lot grade is more than road grade because there's constantly turning on it.
Okay,
Fair enough, more
Yes.
susceptible
I think.
damage.
Yes.
I think Looking Glass is, hopefully ready to be the 2026. There, we are getting hit with rural development, that we are not, that road is not to code. They know it's a city road, so they keep giving us, okay, we'll let it pass, but the last few audits that we've had, they keep telling us, and we keep telling them, we go to
And
the,
the
and that's
drain-
why we've come to the city,
And the
so that.
drainage that Tim talked about also occurs with that, because it doesn't do any good to do that road if that drain. is-
Correct, and that's another thing that I know
Don't
we
forget,
talked about
we
it, but
talked
I still don't understand. I don't understand that part,
the drain part.
yes,
When that was built, there was water. They put in a drain to drain the water away from the building. And there's a lot of places have them. I'm gonna screw it up because I can't remember what the actual name of that is, but it's made to filter through the ground.
French drain.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And so it was never connected to our sewer. I don't even know if our storm sewer was there when I was put in.
Do you have storm sewer that goes by there now?
It stops where the road caves in, that
Yeah.
last manhole is.
So right where
is
the
that
sidewalks.
ends. That's,
stop.
I had a bid, I don't remember who I turned it
see,
into.
and we have not been able to find anything electronic, so basically what's happening is that front apartment is flooding. And the cost that Looking Glass is having to pay every spring to redo that, I mean, they're getting water rushing in, so.
Correct. We had that, we put dye in that line. We know that line that's out there goes from this manhole to this manhole. That's all it
A
does.
front manhole to a back manhole.
Correct. And it runs under that parking lot. That's all
How
that does.
far from the front manhole approximately to the city storm? 100 feet? Is that?
It might be a little over that, maybe 150.
And how deep do you typically, do you know depth?
I would have to find the bid paperwork. We had that all.
You did bid it.
Yeah. I had Mike Smith come in and we had measured it, figured out how much grade it was gonna take, and
Could you could put your hand on it?
not right this second.
Right,
Yeah,
but-
it's in the computer.
And do
Okay,
you think that was when we had the other management company, and maybe that's why we don't have it?
It's very, but I
Okay.
talked to, I think, 3 different people out there since. this
Oh, yeah,
started.
I'm
pretty
sure
Well,
was definitely.
we know, as that board that we have to do something. I mean, that's, and the timing, maybe that needs to be done before 26. So knowing what that cost is, and if that is a cost totally on Looking Glass, which has no money, or if that's something that it can be a shared cost, or we can work for grants to see what we can get, but
Was it a nonprofit?
it is.
So you should be able to get a grant for
Lots
sure.
of grants. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
the
would,
ones we were
especially
just
with,
talking about tonight.
Yeah, I
especially
was
look
gonna
into
say.
those housing.
Yeah, and we've
because-
talked to Justin recently, so,
Okay.
Yeah.
but that is probably our number one. We're gonna get spring. It's gonna start again, and
Right.
if we could bump that drain fix a bit, because I can't imagine that that's gonna be a
was-
ridiculous
It
expense.
was pretty substantial because there's, to get to where that drain is, we gotta go underneath gas lines and fiber optic lines and,
Oh, there's stuff down there.
yeah, there's lots of stuff down there.
Okay,
Nah,
that makes it difficult.
but that could be potentially something that
Get a grant.
could get a grant.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
so if you
Especially
can
with
find that,
housing,
but-
I mean,
But it's not something that we can just go dig a line and lay a pipe in.
no, but
There's-
if you
there's
could
lots of
find
things
that
there.
quote, that would at least give
Power,
us.
though.
It does, but It gets real expensive when you bring things in fiber lines.
We just haven't been able to find that quote, so whether that was the previous management.
Yeah,
company.
it,
How long ago
like I
was?
said, I
was the
talked
quote?
to,
You got it.
since we did the CIP, so it's been last year or two.
Oh,
Well,
we
it
had
had
the
been
same
two- it's been
management
like
company,
2 or
so.
3 years. How long have you had that?
Wow.
I never. know.
Okay.
That's- that's
It might have
really
been
good.
2 or
Just
3.
coming out of COVID.
Time flies when
You
you're
know,
having so much fun.
99 when I started was just the other day, so.
Yeah, I think it would have been, a year and a half.
Thanks, Dan.
Those were. Could you at least take cold patch and throw in that hole that's right up front in the road?
Yes,
And I
we,
think there's a
we've,
couple on.
we've
the
already
turnoff.
patched it twice, so we'll be back out doing it again.
Yeah.
We're
Just
just,
to nurse it
we
along,
have
make
a
it better
limited
than it
supply
is.
of cold patch right now and wait for the weight restrictions to come off, so I
To
can
get
get
back.
it without going out to 69.
Okay,
But
oh,
yes,
you've got to go to 69 to
to
get.
come to Woodbury Road,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Right, any other items we want to discuss? Okay, motion to close.
Motion close.
I want a motion to close?
Yeah.
Oh,
you
okay.
should.
Motion. Need a second?
Second.
Any support, else support?